Hey there, pen fans. This is Dave from the Author's Reserve, and this is the conclusion to my long-term review of the Pelikan M805 Ocean Swirl, this pen here. And the first part of this review, where I do an unboxing and explain where I was able to find an 8-year-old pen, new old stock, give some background on Pelikan and the controversy behind this particular pen, post some measurements and do some size comparisons. That link is on your screen now, up here somewhere. All right, let's get started. So first of all, the Ocean Swirl is one of the most visually captivating materials I've ever encountered. It's deep teal and emerald tones swirled together with these dark, moody contours here in the back, the kind of undercurrents. It never stops being interesting to look at. No two are the same, of course, and while a lot of pens look better in photos than they do in the hand, this is not the case. I can't even quite capture the right color on camera without making my hands go all oompa loompa. Initially, I was really put off by these big bands of black, as many others were, and was kind of the impetus for the controversy surrounding this pen. But I came to appreciate that the darkness serves as a backdrop for the teal, and I think that's what is kind of elevating the chatoyance of the teal. It's very reflective that it almost appears to be emanating its own light, and a light that is brighter than the ambient. Yeah, and I know I'm fawning, but this is the most subjective part of the review, and it's just, like I said, well done. So I started this review with clear methodology, and I want to put the pen through its paces using these 3 different inks: Waterman Serenity Blue, Parker Quink Black, and Aurora Black. And these were intentional choices here. They all have different properties. The Waterman is a neutral baseline ink that is really middle of the road as far as wetness and dryness is concerned. The Parker Quink is a bit drier. It's not over the top dry, but it is drier than the Waterman. And then the Aurora is wetter than the Waterman. My goal was to write 20 to 30 pages, and I ended up producing several long-form journal entries, along with 2.5 chapters for one of my stories, which is pretty good progress for me, since I seem to be kind of stalled out on that particular story. Felt like I got a little bit of traction there, so this worked out for me as well. For the first week, the pen was inked with Aurora Black, and the reason for that is I was out of Waterman Serenity Blue. I thought I had some on the shelf, but it turned out to be the Mysterious Blue, and the Mysterious Blue behaves much more like the Parker Quink Black. It's a little bit drier, it's more saturated, dries slower, and is just a little bit harder to clean. I tossed a coin between these two here, and I went with the Aurora, and the pen behaved admirably with the Aurora ink. However, I was having some issues with the writing of the pen, so eventually I switched over to the Serenity Blue after that arrived, and we'll get into that in a moment here. Okay, so let's talk about the pen itself. The balance is really good posted. I normally do not write with a pen that's posted. I usually leave them unposted, the cap's hanging around somewhere nearby. But with this pen, I preferred it that way. I felt like with the cap off, it still has a wonderful balance. They've been able to maintain the balance whether or not the cap is posted or not. But I felt like this was just slightly too small of a pen for me, unposted. And it also was a little bit on the light side. I prefer one right now that has a little more weight to it. The in-house number 8 size nib is a real improvement over the M1000, which I find overly soft and flexy, almost sloppy for the very little line width variation that it gives you. The M805 doesn't offer that much line width variation either, but the difference there is that it doesn't pretend to. It writes exactly like how it feels. The nib is also very sensitive to ink and paper. We'll get into this in a little bit, but choose the wrong combination and it feels dry and scratchy. And if you choose the right combination, you're rewarded with a smooth writing experience with just enough feedback to maintain control. It's very much a set up right kind of pen. Sadly, the grip is a disappointment to me. It's way too short, and my fingers constantly were digging into the coarse threads up here. They are not comfortable threads. Some pens, you don't really notice them, but this one I do for some reason. Or my fingers would slide down this anemic excuse for a lip here at the end. This is more like just a ramp for your fingers to jump off. This is very slick material down here, and it just doesn't give your fingers very good purchase. So my fingers would wind up slipping off the edge here and touching on the nib, and that's kind of an alarm bell that goes off for me on that. The trade-off there was I wound up holding it back here with a death grip, and that became uncomfortable for writing sessions any longer than about 15 minutes, especially. Now, caveat here, I have some arthritis in my knuckles developing, and things are getting more and more difficult for me to write, and this pen has just exceeded that threshold. As a comparison, we'll look at the M1000 section here. You'll notice it's a lot girthier. It is a lot longer. This is enough room for my fingers to stay on there, and I do appreciate the additional girth. And I wish there was some way that they could do that with the M805. On the other hand, the piston filler is wonderful. It's the smoothest I've ever used. I was a little bit concerned that it might be too smooth and that the blind cap might loosen by accident, or that because I would be using this pen posted, that it might twist that really smooth running blind cap, but it never did. It stayed where it was supposed to stay the entire time. I never had an issue with it. This is a really great example of the engineering and manufacturing that Germany is known for. Unfortunately, if you combine the two strongest features here, which is the piston filler and this wonderful resin, they combine to make a downside for this pen. A while back, I ran a survey asking about ink windows, and 96% of respondents said that they either require or they appreciate ink windows, especially on piston fillers. The more common pinstriped Pelikans allow you to peek through ink volume that's on the inside through the alternating translucent stripes there. But the Ocean Swirl doesn't have that. It is a solid resin, much like this black one here. You can't see into it. Admittedly, an ink window would interrupt the beauty of this pen's design. I'm kind of torn about that. I really wish they had some way to allow you to see how much ink is in this pen. There's no way to check on your ink level until you're out. If that bothers you, you could maybe track the weight of the pen as a workaround, but that seems like a lot of work. And I guess also related to the piston filler, this seems like a good time to mention how well it cleaned. This does a really, really good job of cleaning just by flushing. Didn't take too many pumps to clean it out, maybe 5. Now, given that I've only cleaned this pen 3 times now, that's my experience so far. Some piston fillers, as you fill and clean them, let's say the piston is right about here, some ink will get trapped above it, and that is very difficult to clean. And you'll notice that as you're pumping water in and expelling it, you'll just keep doing it, and more ink seems to come out of that. And that's usually an indication that there's some ink trapped above the piston. I didn't have that problem with this pen at all. It seems to be, again, really well engineered and manufactured pen. Now for some personal notes about the review. After about a week, I almost gave up on this long-term review. I was having a hard time forming letters that I liked. I tried writing smaller and tried writing larger and faster and slower, cursive, print, nothing seemed to help. And even after I switched from the Aurora to Waterman, just my handwriting was a mess. It was really hard to read my handwriting. You would think I was a doctor. No offense to any of you doctors out there, by the way. It wasn't until I changed paper, though, that things started to click. I have been using Rhodia and Tomoe River Sanson for a long time, but for reasons unrelated to this review, I switched to Aerofol paper in the middle of the review, and the difference was immediate. I didn't expect a change, and it was like night and day. My handwriting became more legible. Writing was more natural. I spent less time thinking about forming the letters, and instead, I could use that brain power to form paragraphs in my head, and my hands were struggling to keep up. So I also tried this on the Cosmo Air Light and Air Snow with similar results. And this was all the time I was using the Waterman Serenity Blue when I did these tests. This whole experience exposed a weakness in my review methodology that I haven't been paying close enough attention to the type of paper and how the pen performs on that. So I'll be looking at that more closely in future long-term reviews. As an aside, I haven't been really happy with my last few purchases of Rhodia or Tomoe River Sanson. The feathering has been an issue, and in some cases, so has bleed through. And it seems to be maybe dependent on the ink. I haven't quite zeroed in on that, but it's enough to make me want to switch away from those two papers. That's why I am spending more time with Aerofol and the Cosmo Air series of papers. Unfortunately, and maybe somebody out there knows, I understand that Cosmo Air may be discontinued already and I'm buying like remaining stock. If anyone knows, please put a comment down below. And if you have a good long-term source and are willing to share that with me, I'd appreciate it. Put a link down below, or maybe even just email me directly if you're afraid the whole internet's going to find out. Okay, so one interesting thing that I'm able to do with these long-term reviews is identify oddities about a pen after having used it for a while. I'm calling this the Quirks section. This is probably one of the quirkless pens that I've owned in a long time. It doesn't have anything that actually is very strange about it. Nothing is reverse threaded. There aren't any weird things that you need to be cautious about. Again, this is probably related to German engineering, but it works as designed. The only thing I would say that is a bit quirky about this pen, and it's mostly about the nib, and it's also maybe specifically this pen, is that when I'm writing, sometimes it makes a squeal sound like a cork coming out of a bottle. It not only sounds like it, it also feels like it. You get that sort of a vibration. Now, it doesn't impact the performance of the pen. It doesn't change the way it writes. The ink flow stays the same. There's nothing strange about it. There's no deficiency in the way it performs. It's just a little sound that it makes. I think it's just a quirk, nothing to worry about. It's just a little bit of its own personality, which is kind of cool in my book. Okay, so here's where we've landed after spending real time with the Pelikan M805 Ocean Swirl. It is insanely beautiful. This resin has a class of its own. I hope that someday they bring this resin back, or maybe some other manufacturer brings it back in another pen, so more people have the chance to experience it. The materials and the craftsmanship of this pen are undeniably high quality and absolutely worth the price point. It's also a better choice, again, than the M1000, in my opinion, for anyone who doesn't enjoy soft nibs or doesn't need the extra volume from an oversized pen. The M805 has a better nib with better control, more character, and none of that over softness that made the 1000 feel imprecise, in my opinion. That comparison has helped clarify something for me, and that is I don't think there's a place in my collection for the M1000, unfortunately. If I'm going to be reaching for a Pelikan, it's going to be the M805. That said, this isn't a perfect pen. It is hobbled by this short grip and the coarse threads, and any lack of an ink level indicator. If your writing sessions are on the shorter side or you have smaller hands, you may never notice these issues, but they do matter to me. Realistically, though, despite everything that it gets right, this pen probably won't see much use in my collection. There's just too much competition. Fantastic pens with interesting nibs and far more comfortable sections. Still, I am glad that I spent time with this pen. It helped me understand not just this pen better, but also my preferences more clearly and made progress on one of my stories. Hopefully that gives you enough information to make a decision if you're ever considering an M800 series, either the 800s or the 805s. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out in the comments section. Now let's talk about the giveaway. The giveaway for this video is a Pelikan M805, which is a really beautiful pen. Very sleek. There's very few external features. It has a very zen feel to it. It's aluminum. 100% aluminum, except for the grip section, which is resin. And the internal box is also a aluminum case that's inside this paper box. It comes with a cartridge and a converter, but I am also going to be including an additional 5 cartridges to go with that. If you're interested in participating in this giveaway contest, then all you need to do is like the video and subscribe to the channel. And then down below, use the keyword Pelikan. Make sure you use the German spelling that you see here. Use that in a comment down below. Click that button. It doesn't cost you anything. Thanks for watching. Have a great day and get out there and write something.